everybody, and welcome to another board gaming discussion video. Today we're going to be talking about sort of the light and dark side, so to speak, of a very important fabric within board gaming, and that is the FLGS, the Friendly Local Game Store. I wanted to talk about this because it's sort of a continuation of a lot of things that I've not only alluded to but directly stated through many of my videos in the last couple of months. Most recently I talked about getting new people into board gaming, and the thing is, one of the best ways to do that is just to have them sit and play games, right? Obviously, that's what you want to do. I've also talked about things like behaviors and like the types of people that can really just sort of grind you the wrong way that we see at these large like game store meetup groups and things of that nature. And part of why I wanted to talk about this specifically are, well, several different reasons. First off, I've seen more and more recently, particularly the things that I attend have gotten much lower attendance, right? We're talking about going from like 35 or 40 people down to like 15, and it's really bad, right? So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about, again, introducing new players. Specifically, I will be talking about women. Okay, now I know this is something that is a very hot button issue right now and all this kind of stuff, but the thing is, I wanted to mention it at least very briefly. I'll talk about it later on though, right? The other thing I wanted to talk about just as a general thing is just to tell you guys, I've been attending FLGS's for the purpose of board gaming for about five and a half years or so. And the reason being that I really did not have a regular gaming group where previously we would go to this guy's house every weekend and we would just sit and play games for like 5 or 6 hours. It was great. The problem is, I didn't have that opportunity later on after I had moved, so I found the Friendly Local Game Store instead. So like I said, we are going to be talking about both the good and the bad for it. So first and foremost, we are going to be talking about the good. Now, what are we talking about with the good, especially in the context of these meetup groups and things like that? You get to play games that you otherwise wouldn't. Now, maybe not necessarily otherwise wouldn't, but you get to play games that you don't have, all right? Other people are bringing games, you get to see what they've got, you get to see what's going on, all of that kind of thing. Sometimes, you know, maybe you'll know somebody who can get new games before they're released or anything along those lines. It's really cool. There's a lot of potential for it. On top of that, the fact that these people are going to board game meetups means that maybe they're going to conventions. If they're going to conventions, then maybe they'll bring back new games and you get to try a bunch of new cool stuff, right? All of that kind of thing. Another great thing about the Friendly Local Game Store is the fact that when you go to these meetup groups, then you do get to meet people. And let's face it, a lot of people who are in the gaming realm are introverts. I know I very much am introverted. That's just the way my brain works. And the thing is, going out and being able to play board games with people, even if it's people that I've never met before and all this kind of thing, is great. It's absolutely wonderful because we have common ground that we can discuss and we can just sit there and blather on about board games for a long time. And you know, maybe later on you just hang out outside of board games. You know, it's a good way to meet people, potentially make friends and all that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love board games. Another great thing about your Friendly Local Game Store is when you go there and you go shopping, then you can actually pick up, you can hold the game, you can see what it is. Many game stores have demo copies that you can look at and that they sort of like donate for the game nights and things of that nature. So it's a great way, again, to look at games before you buy them yourself, to see whether or not you like them. And on top of that, just shopping on Amazon or like CoolStuffInc.com or whatever it happens to be, there's just something so disconnecting about it where, like, yeah, you see a picture of the box and all this stuff, but being able to physically hold it in your hand and be like, wow, that's a heavy one, you know, stuff like that. That's one of the things that I always get and that I always question is when I see these games for like $60 or $70, then it just sort of boggles my mind, and then I'll go and I'll see it at a store and I'm just like, whoa, it's like, this is ridiculous. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And it's, you know, just things like that are absolutely amazing, and it's great, and it's a huge help for the community. Again, it's a great way to do outreach and all this kind of thing, to see who else is in your local community and just to get to know other people. That is really the biggest thing that is great about Friendly Local Game Stores, all right, is you see all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, on a most basic level, you're going to be talking to a bunch of nerds, right? By and large, people who are really into board games and want to go to those types of things are at least in some way connected to a nerd fandom of some sort. I mentioned this a little while ago when I talked about introducing new players, when I talked about theme of board games. There's bound to be some kind of a theme that you really enjoy. Whether it's science fiction or fantasy or history or whatever it happens to be, or science, obviously. All that kind of stuff. There's always going to be some option for you. And again, going to the game store allows you to look at it, check it out, see what's going on. And on top of that, it does so much to make people feel a lot more comfortable, right? For example, it was absolutely hilarious at one of my friendly local game stores that I went to for a gaming thing during the holidays. They had a sign on the door that said, "Spoilers for Star Wars The Force Awakens will result in banishment." And I couldn't help but just laugh. Right? I just thought it was absolutely hilarious, but of course they were serious. It was a serious deal because you're talking about a bunch of people who really wanted to see it. And this was like 3 days after it had been released. So obviously not everybody had gotten to see it. I know that I hadn't seen it at the time, so it was really a good thing to see. But that said, we'll go into some of the not so good things, right? One of the main things, and again, I said that I would talk about it, I said that I would, is that we have to admit that board gaming is male dominated. That's it. That's the way it is. And it's unfortunate. And I went to a game night not too long ago with a lady friend of mine, and when we walked in, the first thing she said was, "I am the only woman here." And I was like, yes, you are, and I am sorry. Because at this particular meetup group, it was normally about 40% women, right? It was normally a pretty decent ratio, and you would see people, but it happened that at the time we walked in, there were no women there. And the problem, you can make so many arguments on this fact. You can say, obviously it's a good place to potentially find dating. You can find people to date and all this kind of thing. But at the same time, it's more just about being inclusive. We want everybody and anybody to feel comfortable coming to a game store to play games. And the fact is, I can see the perspective of a woman walking in, seeing tables full of 20 men playing board games. And it's not hostile, not, with malicious intent or whatever, but just sitting there having a good time. But the thing is, I can see it being very uncomfortable because, again, I am a very introverted person and I don't like social situations in general. I can only imagine how it would be in that particular context, all right? It's horrible. It's really unfortunate. The problem is, I don't know that there's any way to fix it, right? Again, it's just a fact of the way that it is right now, the way that I have seen it at all of the stores that I've attended these meetups at. It is male dominated, and it's really unfortunate, right? The other major con is, or there's two other major cons I wanted to talk about. The first one is the fact that they are disappearing, and it's really unfortunate. The fact is that competition from online sellers like Amazon and even Cool Stuff Inc., who does have brick and mortar stores, the fact is that it's so much cheaper to just go online and buy games and just have them shipped to you, right? Why would you go to a friendly local game store? There is not a real good monetary reason to do it, so why bother? And again, it's just up to us as gamers to say these places are worthwhile, right? It is a good place to meet people of similar mindsets so that we can go and see what other people are doing, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. They are disappearing right now. Last but not least is, I don't know the best way to put this, but the fact is that some stereotypes are stereotypes because they're true. And I have had very unfortunate experiences with some gamers, okay? Now, the specific thing that I am talking about in this case is hygiene. I have been to many friendly local game stores, more often than not, we are not talking about just board games. In fact, you can never have a game store that is only board games. It's not possible, okay? I'll say that first. But more often than not, we would see Magic the Gathering tournaments, okay? Now, again, stereotypes are stereotypes. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. In my experience, I have been to game stores that had to post signs outside that said, if your smell is bothering other patrons, you will be asked to leave. I have experienced this, and it is disgusting. Seriously, I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, to an extent, I can get it, you know, like there are medical problems that can make people smell really bad. But seriously, this is not the type of social interaction that I want to have. The fact is that the people who go to some of these things sometimes are not the best. And that goes back to point number one as far as the cons are concerned, where we can't feel comfortable if this kind of stuff keeps happening. And it's really unfortunate. And you can make an argument that this is kind of nitpicky to mention hygiene specifically. But seriously, if you guys have ever gone through it, you will know what I am talking about. It is just, it just controls the entirety of your body. It controls the entirety of the night to go through something like that. And it's really, really frustrating and very unfortunate. It's more unfortunate than anything else because it's something that's so simple and it should not happen. It really shouldn't. We should not have to see signs outside of game stores that say if you smell bad, you'll be asked to leave. Seriously, we shouldn't have to have that. Everybody should be able to come in and just feel at home. A friendly local game store should be a second home for us. The first word is friendly, right? Well, obviously you can be friendly without having a bunch of other stuff. But thankfully, in my experience, I have had the luxury of that, where everybody that I've gamed with, everybody that I've met at these meetup groups and all this kind of stuff have been very, very friendly, which is amazing. And again, tremendously helpful in the context of just sociability and just, you know, being in that situation in general. But again, it's just, I mean, again, the whole point of this video is there's good and there's bad. Thankfully, for me personally, the good really does outweigh the bad, right? I love board games. I love playing board games. But the fact is that more often than not, I can't get regular board nights set up with the same group of people, just sit down and play a bunch of games. So I go to board game nights because it makes sense. I mean, I see the same people over and over, so I'm just like, hey, what's up, man? You know, all that kind of stuff. And it's great. It's absolutely amazing, and I love it. But at the same time, there are just such unfortunate things about the game stores. And again, it's something that I've done several videos on at this point. One of the biggest issues is the people, or it can be the people, but sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get really unlucky. And again, in terms of just the fact that we are in something that is relatively male dominated, it can be very unfortunate and very frustrating, and again, extremely uncomfortable. And I mean, obviously I haven't lived through it, but I can very much sympathize with it, okay? And, you know, you just see the look of devastation on the faces of some of these women. It's just really, really tragic. And, like, I'll see them come for, you know, like 1 or 2 times, right? And it looks like they're having a great time. It looks like they're having so much fun. And then, like, on the meetup group, like on the posts online, just like, yeah, it was too weird. I didn't really enjoy it. It just seemed really awkward. And we can't do that. We have to make people feel comfortable. If people aren't comfortable, they're not going to come. Okay? That's really what it boils down to. But with that, I'm going to get going. That's enough ranting for me today. I do hope that you enjoyed this video to an extent at least, or at least get some kind of a message for it. I do hope that you guys are going to your own friendly local game stores, if not to if not to play games, then at least to peruse and just sort of, keep notice of these stores, that they exist and they really are good for the community in the end. But that said, I would love to hear your guys' story about that. I mean, let's some positivity, I want to hear, like, how did you get into it, when did you first go, all this kind of stuff. I know for me, I have had some wonderful experiences with it. Like when I first started going to the game store meetup group things, then Cosmic Encounter has always been my favorite game. When I first started going, I met a couple of other people who absolutely loved it. We literally played Cosmic Encounter every week, and it's because of the two of them that I have all of the expansions. Because initially, like, I was buying them, I was like, yeah, we got more stuff, it's so awesome. And then we were splitting costs because it's so cool. And same thing with Time Stories. The people that I'm playing Time Stories with, I met at one of these gaming groups. Like, these are great things. We need these, right? Especially as board gamers. Video gamers, they can just go on the internet, right? I can go on the internet because I'm a video gamer too, right? But board gamers, we need the physical interaction. We need this physical aspect, right? And yes, you can play some board games online. I understand that. But that's not the point, okay? Either way. That's it for me. Again, put any and all comments below, preferably some good stuff, though. I want to keep it at least reasonably positive, but obviously any negative stories that you have as well. It's just, at the very least, hopefully some people can learn from our own experiences and all this kind of thing. But with that, thank you so very much for watching this. I do apologize that it's a little bit of a glum thing, but like I said, just recently it has really particularly started to grind on me. So I wanted to discuss it at least a little bit. But with that, thank you so very much for being here, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much again, everybody, for watching my discussion video on friendly local game stores. Again, there is a lot of good and a lot of bad on this topic, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Now, again, I would like to hear most of the positive things, but as always, if we don't acknowledge the negative, the problem is it's never going to get fixed. So let's take a look. Let's see if there's anything at all that we can do about it. And as always, I have several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page, and you can click on the big giant subscribe button to see more of me in the future. But with that, thank you so very much for being here, and I will see you next time.